All right, today I meet the neighborhood. Phil Jolicoeur is our guest. And first of all, I want to address your name title because over the years, you've changed your name for fun purposes, for business purposes. You have to explain to me where little Phillip Moe Jolicoeur comes from.
Oh, it's my hip hop name, straight up gangster.
Well,
no,
I always wished I had a wrestling name. Vanilla Thunder seemed like a good wrestling name back in the day.
yeah, it's a good one for you too.
So, is that
No,
was that part of an old career move, or was it just for fun, or a nickname, or?
no. So little Mo, so my uncle who passed away quite a few years ago, I was born on his birthday, and I'm a 6'1". I'm about 290 pounds, and I've always been bigger than my Uncle Mo, and so he used to call me Little Mo, and I used to call him Big Mo, and because we were born on the same day, and my middle name's Maurice, so that was his name as well, was Maurice.
Nice.
So I changed my Facebook name to Little Mo when he passed away, and I just haven't changed it back. So it's one of those things too, it kind of separates my personal page from just the brand I've created with just Phil Jolicoeur, and that way it's my personal page.
Very cool. I see. I had no idea that there was even a family tie in there. I
Yeah.
do like the idea that it's your hip hop name, though. That seems like a pretty cool explanation.
Yeah, I've got a couple hip hop songs out there, and it just look me up, and I'm gonna make it big one day.
Let's talk about all the stuff that you've done over the years, because you and I were joking about this before we started recording. When you and I first met, was it, like 04, 02,
Probably around '02. Yeah,
give or take?
probably. Yeah,
Because you
'02
were
when I moved back from Cal. No, no. Yeah, '02. So,
you were in radio
uh,
school at the time, no?
yes, and you would come into I believe talk to us at Loyalist a couple times.
Poor
I think
kids.
you might have been part of the board at some point
I
too.
was part of the advisory
Yeah,
board. Yep.
yeah, and you were close to everywhere I lived. So between you and Brian Ellis
Yeah.
and the Quinny guys, when I had any questions or things like that, you guys were always fantastic. And even though you never hired me, but you were always good mentors in the area and always pleasant to talk to. So that's when we first met, and then I started dating a girl,
Yep.
and then
Sue.
yeah, and then we re-met back, and that's when she was working for you there in Coburg.
But I think that's when I got to know you a little better, because it was more than just kind of a passing meeting with 40 students, right? Like,
Correct.
because you started out in radio. Was radio sort of your first choice, your first love? Was it something you were excited about? Were you
Yeah.
sort of looking for something in the music industry? Because I know music's always been a passion of yours. What was the genesis of the radio move?
Howard Stern. I don't know. A lot of people when Stern rocked the world, when he used to do what he did, I wanted to do it too. And you never heard anything like him in Canada. Like there was,
No.
even when he got syndicated to Q107, he when I listened to him talk, and as not everybody agrees with everything he says, and he's super edgy, but it was all calculated. Like he knew what he was doing. He did it well, and it's to the day I can still listen to Howard Stern all day. It's just something about his voice. It's something about how he communicates. It's that's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to do it, and when I signed up for radio broadcasting, my friends called it basket weaving. I was signing up for the basket weaving class, and they all didn't think I was going to go anywhere in radio, but I was like, screw it. This is what I want to do. It seems like a
Yeah.
lot of fun, and it was. It was a ton of fun. First day you're sitting in the class, and the professor says, Steve Bolton, I don't know if you remember
I
him. He
remember
says,
Bolts.
look
Yeah.
to your right, look to your right, look to your left. One of you are going to get a job. You're like, great. How much was OSAP again?
Right. Well, and you're right about Stern, though, because what made him so huge was he made a decision in his career. It's in his movie, actually. He made a decision one day in his career to just not filter anything that came into his head. And as bizarre as that sounds, or as natural as that sounds today, it was such a foreign concept for radio at the time. And I think one of the things that Howard doesn't get as much credit for is that over the years, he's developed into maybe one of the best interviewers on the planet and
Oh,
one of the
yeah.
best conversationalists on the planet. And he's got some long form interviews on YouTube where he's talking to everybody from musicians to politicians. And you can, they're all compelling. He has a way of getting people to talk and tell stories that they may not tell other interviewers. And, there's a persistence there with him. But I think that was, aside from sort of the wacky outrageousness of what made him so massive in the 90s, that evolution in his career has been a huge sort of benefit moving forward, because his audience has grown up with him. Right. So,
Yeah, and I have Sirius now, and I still listen to him. And the interview process, he was just interviewing Coldplay, and just the stuff he can get out of people is amazing. And before you know it, like if you're on a long drive, you got somebody from the Whack Pack that's popping up on there that you haven't heard or seen since you watched the Howard Stern movie. And I'm like, I can't believe this person's still calling in on a regular basis. Like
yeah.
it's an unbelievable platform that he's created for himself, and that's why I went to school for radio broadcasting. I didn't know if I was going to be a big broadcaster at the time. I majored in the announcing class. I didn't pay attention much to the sales. I didn't pay much to the production side of things. I just wanted to be behind a microphone and play some music and talk. And it worked for a little bit. I put 500 demo tapes out, and I printed out I used to have to print out the labels for them with my name and my phone number and email, and put them on and put them in an envelope with a resume. And I'm sure you had a few of them that sat on your desk, along with 500 other people that looked to the right and looked to the left that didn't get a job. So,
well, it's funny you say that though, Phil, because it brings up that process that you just described, I think is applicable in today's day and age, because the principle back then was identify as many places as possible that you can work at, make as many contacts as you can with people that could potentially hire you, and build some relationships with those people and figure out a way to get to the top of the pile when a job came open. And I can tell you, as a guy that used to hire people on a not so regular basis, but when we did hire someone, it was almost always familiarity. Like nobody picks a tape off the pile and goes, this is the best tape I've ever heard, we have to hire this person. I mean, that got the process further down the process. But when it came down to hiring someone, whoever you had a relationship with and that you were familiar with or were comfortable with and knew were going to fit into your station's culture, that person always jumped to the front of the line. Because
it's who you know.
Yeah, and that networking thing. But I think you took that, when you talk about sending out 500 tapes, like there's a level of persistence there and a level of passion that to go through that process, knowing this may have zero return for me, but I'm going to do it anyway, I think has paid you well through your career, has it not? Like you've maintained that through
100%.
all phases of your career, like that fearlessness to just go out and, okay, I'm going to do this today, and then go do it.
Exactly. And it's the resilience of learning how to do that, and being able to hear the word no and just going, okay, well, who's going to say yes? Who's the next person to say yes? And just keep building that network of good people. Like that there's so many good people out there in the networking, and Loyalist College was such a good start for that, because when you're in radio broadcasting, you're surrounded by journalists, you're surrounded by the broadcast journalists, you're surrounded by the culinary arts, you're surrounded by a lot of great people. And that was what, 17, 18 years ago, and that's when Facebook just started too. So
right.
Conveniently enough, those people became your network on a list of social media.
Yep.
And back then, a lot of people didn't utilize social as a tool, and I was like, this is going to be a great tool. I realized that when I first started on it. I wasn't posting pictures of or things telling people I was going to go take a number 2 or anything like that. I was on there strictly for a tool. Like I utilized that tool. Yeah. And a lot of jobs I had, and when I just started off doing my own PR thing, if I needed a broadcast journalist to cover a story for me in a certain area for an event I was doing, it was as easy as a Facebook message. And I don't think a lot of people really utilized the tool back then as much as they do now and realize that. But it was a great free tool, and I still utilize it to the day. It's actually a big part of my business now. So
well, and as a guy that has done sales over your career and is currently involved in a sales venture, like, do you remember in the early days of sending out those tapes, any rejections that you got? Is there any that stand out, or conversations you had? Because I know point blank, like I had a conversation one time. I finally got on the phone with a I won't give his name, but a big shot radio guy in Rogers. And I was excited because I had tried to get the meeting with him for months. And the call lasted about 30 seconds. And I just asked him for some feedback on my tape. Hey, can I get some ideas of what I could do and maybe advance, and what would it take for me to get hired at one of your stations? And he basically said, I don't have time to get to the people that I work with. Why the fuck would I use you? Why would I spend time working on you when I can barely get to the time? And then he just hung up the phone. And it was one of those things where, but at the time, like, I didn't take it personally, because I'm like, yeah, this dude runs like 40 radio stations. I get why he's not taking time with me. Is there any rejections for you that stand out like that?
Yeah, two. I'll use the two rejections. Both happened with Chorus Entertainment, actually. And
You ended up with
world. I ended up working with them. But the very first job when I graduated from radio broadcasting, they were looking for the morning show, a new morning show host on Q107. All right. And I always was a firm believer. Let's start at the top and then we'll work our way down.
Right.
So
take
just
your
like
swing
I said,
and then work down.
yeah, so I put out one of those 500 demo tapes, was addressed to Q107 of course, and I sent it in with my resume, and I was straight up honest with them. I was like, I'm fresh out of high school or fresh out of college, and go, I know I'm probably not going to get the best morning show job in Canada, but here it is. Here's my demo, and I didn't get the job. And guess who gets the job? Kim Mitchell. Kim, Mr. Patio fucking Lanterns, gets the job. And I've been bitter with him
also
ever
had no
since.
radio experience.
Who had no radio experience, zero radio experience, other than getting number one play to hit our CanCon quota. But
He had a fairly good music career, yeah.
yeah. So he got the job. So that was my number one. I didn't even get a call back. So it was my first real rejection where I was like, oh, that kind of hurts. And then the last job that I applied for in the broadcasting world, and as you know, to get into broadcasting, typically your first steps is in through the promotions and doing like on
Street team
and crew street team. So I was living in Calgary, Alberta, and they were looking for the street team for the Stampede, and I went in and I applied for a job, and they brought me in for an interview, and I waited in this nice room in Chorus in Calgary, and they brought me in, and I was set. I was like, I'm gonna get this job. And they told me literally up front, sorry, Phil, but we're mostly hiring women for this job. It's the Stampede. We need a street team that's female. And we just had to bring in so many men to hit our quota for interviews. I'm like, at least
that
you're
doesn't
honest,
feel
right?
like the right thing to say.
No, it doesn't. Like HR wise, I think that it could be a big problem, but
Right?
it's that was the last time I applied for an actual radio job, other than the radio job I ended up getting in sales here a couple of years ago. But yeah, those stood out. And then the ones that stuck out to me, honestly, were I applied for a morning show position at the Wolf. That was probably Danny Guppy got on Fresh, and Danny Guppy got the job. And
I remember we talked before you applied.
Yeah,
I remember you reached out.
Yeah, sent you a demo and everything, and just the kindness that people like yourself and even Brian Ellis and all the community guys gave to us radio people that were still trying, and helping us out with what those things really stick out in the community. And that's why when I saw you doing these Facebook live conversations with your community, I was like, that'd be something awesome to be part of.
Please tell me I didn't say anything terrible to you.
What, for my demo?
Because I remember you reached out and you said, hey, I'm applying for the Wolf position or the Fresh position, and could you give me a listen or whatever? I can't remember what I wrote back.
No, you were honest, and it was good. I think you told me to take out a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but overall you said it sounded great. So
yeah, worst
you're
case
either
scenario,
misleading me and saying I was sounding great, or
So like you had applied for radio and stuff, and you at some point you decided, listen, I'm spinning my wheels here. Was that when you went out on your own and started your own PR firm?
So I went back to school for the postgraduate public relations program at Loyalist, and I realized that I needed something else under my belt, and I just wasn't quite ready to move forward with whatever it was yet. And it was a nice adaptation and a nice add-on to what I already knew and how I do things. Because Carrie Ramsey was the professor. It was her first year teaching the course. It was a brand new course. And it really just put a hammer on helping out your community, your not for profits, and networking. And in that short year, we managed, well, in that short year, there was a student strike. So, or not a student strike, a teacher strike. And our year was even cut shorter. But Carrie was phenomenal through it all. And she still reached out and helped us all. And I really learned a lot about growing my network and how to help communities and, how to write press releases and how to promote things. And so now that I'm moving from just being a brand of myself and wanting to be on air, now I'm learning how to be behind everything and promote other people and help them adapt and help them move. And I just learned if you just keep talking, you can almost promote or sell anything if you're honest about it and if you put a passion into it and a belief. And ever since then, I've been selling or communicating or public relations and helping bands out and comedians and putting shows on for not for profits. And my business before I called it the marketing guy, I was just Phill PR. I was Phill Public Relations, and raised almost $1 million for not for profits across Canada on a local level through comedy and music. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever done, was be able to be part of that in such a positive way and helping out. As great as the Canadian Cancer Society is, it's this huge funded program,
Monolith.
but being able to help a local breast breast cancer awareness campaign, or the paddle boats, or not the paddle boats, the dragon boat festivals and things like that, just with holding successful events and bringing the community together and really putting an emphasis on them, and then utilizing that broadcast journalists and the radio people and the people I met from school, and bringing it all together to put successful events and raise money. It's been quite the career so far. I haven't got rich yet, but I'm rich inside for sure.
Well, but you know what? It's something that it was drilled into us in radio for years, was that you have to be a reflection of your community. Pardon me. And you have to champion your community. And, even when you've been, whether it's doing your own thing or being involved in radio, that sense of championing your community, I think you hit on that just a minute ago, because there's always someone in the community that needs a cheerleader, that needs a support system, that needs promotion, that needs help. You talked about, like, the Canadian Cancer Society is this giant monolith, but if I help Becky, who's going through breast cancer, and we raise enough funds to get her transportation to and from Toronto for treatment for 6 months, that's a win. And you've always seemed to have had a passion for that. You've always been involved in it. Where does that come from in your background? Where was that instilled in you?
Um, I, I grew up with my mom and four sisters, and there was just a lot of love in the house. We didn't have anything. We were a very poor family. We received a lot of help growing up. To be honest though, like my mom didn't do a lot of that. My sisters don't do a lot of that. I don't have a lot of family that does a lot of the community involvement stuff, other than being part of church and stuff. But it just came natural. I started raising money for the Terry Fox, the Terry Fox races in high school, and for 4 years in a row, I raised the top amount of money in NDHS, and they bring me out to Peterborough they give me a nice plaque. I still got them in the basement covered in dust, but they give me a nice plaque saying thanks for your support. And then you do the Terry Fox run, and you just raise a bunch of money for them. And I always just had a passion for helping them out. And maybe, as cliche as it sounds, maybe it's my last name. It's Happy Heart. Jolicoeur means happy heart. So I don't know. It came naturally. It was a natural thing for me. It always has been. And my heart always sinks when I see something that I feel injustice for, or I feel that there's something I can do to help things get better. It's just always there, and I really don't know why. I think you're just born empathetic. It just comes naturally.
That's an interesting statement. I think you're just born empathetic. Do you think that's something that people can learn over time?
You can learn everything, and you can change too. You can be a self-righteous asshole one minute, and and then the next, you can be a changed person. But I'm on a self reflection for myself. I've always had a heart. I've always been a sensitive guy. I haven't cried a lot lately, but I used to be a crier. I used to feel pain, other people's pain. I feel other people's pain more than I feel mine.
Do you find, with regards to that during the pandemic and during this sort of divisive times that we seem to be moving towards, especially south of the border, that as a society we're losing, or our ability for empathy is shifting in a negative way? Because I feel like there's a lot of people that are dismissing entire segments of the population in a form of lack of empathy because they're so concerned about their own right now and backyard. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, for sure, and you're right. We're a very divided community right now, and it was one of my biggest fears actually of sending my kids back to school. And it wasn't necessarily COVID and my kids getting COVID. It was more how divided I've seen our communities get. In Peterborough alone, right? You've got the vaccinated, you got the unvaccinated, you got these anti-vax rallies, and you got the people staying at home because they're scared and they have a mask on everywhere they go. And some people have that like I had the privilege of getting paid full time and working from home. So do I have the empathy that the people that don't? Yeah, for sure I do. But I can't. I have that privilege of sitting at home and being able to stay safe and keep my family safe and tell my kids this, my opinion, keep your mask on and it's going to keep you safe, right? This is what the smarter than me people are telling me. So now I send my kids to school and I see these anti-vax rallies and things like that, and you can see that there's kids there and they're being taught a totally different thing. They're being told that you don't need to be scared, you don't need to wear your mask, and that's fine. That's how these people are being, so now we have that divide of kids going to school with that same division that we've seen adults have. And we all know that kids don't have the tools or the capabilities of dealing with things as adults do, most adults, because we learn over time how to, like, a baby's crying, they don't know how to talk to you and tell you what's wrong. Kids are the same, right? They're having fits because they don't know how to properly tell you what's wrong. And now we get the kids that are being taught these things and going to school, and there's two different attitudes, and we're going to see that. Touch wood, I haven't heard anything from my daughter or anything coming back from school yet, but that's one of my biggest fears, is that division is going to be carried on into schools. And it is a huge division right now in society. And I think it's because we have people that don't know how to look outside that box and see what's going on in the world necessarily, and they just see what's going on in their own world and what makes their world better and makes everything better, right? So I don't know if I answered your question properly, but it's so hard to talk about the divide that we're seeing in the community. And it does take a village. You had Joyce on the show, and she's the one that's always drilled that into my head. It takes a village, and we just need to keep our shit together and keep moving forward and care and that empathy. Like, if somebody else is better off than you and you can make it better for them, then do it. But
You touched on privilege a second ago, and I think there's a certain level of privilege, and maybe it's perspective I'm thinking about, but when it comes to the pandemic, because when you see protests and you see rallies and you see people get, like, I'm not sure how we got to a place in society where protesting out front of hospitals from people that are saving lives became acceptable. I'm not sure what the purpose is or what goes through somebody's head to go, this is how I'm going to spend my day today. This is a good use of my time, and this is going to contribute to society and make other people feel better. That I can't bend my head around that. I just can't square that circle in any way. So I wonder where we became a place where, when it comes to belief systems and personal beliefs, no matter how you got there, from whether it's taught to you, whether it's something you read online, whether it's something you've experienced, or any way that learning has come into your head, how we've gotten to the point where care and concern for others is now trumped by whatever I think and feel is important to me. And I'm not saying that's massed through all of society, but it seems like that portion of society is getting more and more loud.
They are getting loud, and I feel and this is just me looking at, because I can't bring myself to even think why they think that's okay, but I think they're giving a they're getting attention in a negative way.
Sure.
And I feel that these protests out front of the hospital are being put there because they feel this is the only way we're going to be heard. We did it out front of the government buildings. That's not working. The mayor or whoever's not coming out and saying hi and acknowledging us. The media is not covering us. They think the media is bought by every government agency possible. And I know, you can have your opinion on all that too, but they're not. It's a news cycle. They're covering what's there. And is it good publicity to be, they're not going to go sit out in front of the government, but now we're outside the hospital and they're having a negative effect on everybody, and they're not seeing that. But I hope they're not seeing that for. I hope there's a heart in these people, and I know there is. I know not everybody's just evil, and I hope that they're seeing that they're causing an issue, but they think that the bigger issue is what they're standing for, and now they're getting attention for it. But it's not working. Like, I don't. That's when they lose my empathy, because I try to relate with these people and go, this is why you're doing this, because you feel it's going to make your society better, and you feel that it's being taken over by the government or whatnot. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so I don't think anybody's out to get me. But if that's why you're out there doing it, I hope that they can still see that there's people that are sick in those places. There's people that are dying. There's people that are bringing their mom in there for cancer. Their wives are, for cancer care. That's the last thing they need to be running through. So I just hope that they can start putting their focus somewhere else, and somewhere positive. Like, if they put all that energy towards something more positive, like brainstorm and like, how can we change society without standing in front of a hospital and making people's lives miserable? And
Dude, that seems like it seems like such a simple concept. Like, you wake up in the morning, what am I going to do to make things better today?
Yeah.
If people woke up with that attitude, what would that look like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, okay, what can I do to make somebody's day better today? Because that will make your day better. I mean, every time you go through that sort of gratitude cycle, anytime you pay respect or do something great for somebody, the general side effect is that you feel generally positively affected by it, and it helps. And studies show that showing gratitude generally helps your well-being. It helps with depression and all kinds of other fun stuff. So, when you talk about that kind of stuff, and you've always sort of been a guy that strives to do better by the people around you, and through your career, when you were doing the PR kind of thing, what were sort of your favorite gigs to do when you were working with clients and fundraisers and community events? Because community involvement was obviously the core focal point of what you did, and what you're doing now for that matter. But what were some of your favorites?
Comedy shows for sure. I love putting a good comedy show on, because you're getting a room together, and in comedy is a little bit divisive now too, just because we're in a different generation where it's a little bit different.
Cancel culture.
Yeah, but if you can get a room of people laughing at just one guy standing at the front, and we're all there for a good cause, because typically all the comedy shows I did had a charity attached to them, and we'd have raffles and a dinner, and money would be raised for the charity. But the community all steps up, so you got this big silent auction that's surrounded by you, that people are making thousands of dollars off of. The charity's making thousands of dollars, hopefully, off of raffle items and things. The community helped put that together. Then you got a room full of people that bought tickets to come to your comedy show. Majority of the people that are coming to the comedy show are coming because of, when you got a link to the charity, they're coming to support that charity, not necessarily because it's a comedy show. But once they're in that seat, and you got 3 comics up there, you got an MC and two headliners, and everybody's laughing for 90 minutes straight. And then at the end of the night, you got a few people that are, wobbly walking out. Everybody's walking out with some sort of raffle item. We had a 50-50 draw, and somebody would donate that money back to it. To really see a community come together to put on a successful show, that was the best feeling ever. And the music came naturally too. Living in Peterborough and Northumberland areas, with all the great artists that we have in both communities that are willing to step up and play a gig. And, it wasn't a gig for a lot of money, if money at all. It was there because of the same thing. We're putting on a show to bring the community together to help out XYZ charity. And that's what really helped me keep going. I didn't necessarily have any charity that was closest to my heart or not for profit that was close to my heart. I was really focused just on local not for profits that were running on one or two volunteers, weren't making 100 grand a year. They weren't making a ton of money, but they're there trying to do their best. And those were the ones that I really helped out, and I tried to help out the most.
That's sort of a theme of championing the little guy, no?
Yeah, and
What,
that's
what,
the focus of my business now. Is it's not necessarily in the not for profits, but I really want to focus my business on helping the small local businesses out. We're in a pivotal time. We've been in a pivotal time for I don't even know how many years it's been now. It's like one. It's almost 2 years, I
the
think.
years are running into each other now, yeah.
Yeah, and we're just constantly shifting, and then watching the struggle of these small businesses, particularly restaurants. I know everybody's had to shift, but the restaurants that were able to stay open and maintain and shift with every single bylaw that came out, even now with this
I can't
past quarter. Yeah.
imagine what that was like day to day, because I know in the mortgage industry, like things would change, like lender policies would change from time to time, but we essentially went remote. So I didn't have to deal with changing regulations every day on if I had to meet somebody in the office, or if, how many people could be at the office, or whatever the case may be, because we did this a lot of the time. That
Yeah.
navigating that whole minefield, especially in the first 6 to 8 months, I think I can't believe the number of businesses that did survive.
Yeah, and they're fighters. I got some good friends and clients that are still open and doing super well. They're doing super well, but they're exhausted. Like you can
Oh,
just tell they're exhausted. It's an exhausting. Work in the restaurant industry is exhausting in the first place. It's typically 7 days a week, 6 to 7 days a week, and morning to close for a restaurant owner. And it's not changed. It's just now they've got more rules and more regulations and less staff and
less seating
inventory, less
space.
food, less space, less seating space. So yeah, they're making less money, but they're working twice as hard. And yeah, no, it's a tough time. So it's if I can help out with my business now with a marketing strategy to help businesses keep shifting, and I try not to say pivot anymore, but
Pivot, pivot.
keep shifting so we can win and all win together and hopefully see everybody survive at the end of it, because it's a shame to see some businesses even still in Peterborough come to an end, just because now it's employee shortages, right? It is like
Right,
we can't keep our doors open because we have no employees, and
right.
it's like you fought all this way, the good fight, and now you
And
just can't
yeah,
get somebody to work for you.
like
Yeah.
in with your new business, in marketing, PJ, the marketing guy,
Yep.
um, it's new in that, it's new that you've launched this brand, but you've been marketing and PR for as long as I've known you. What, when you talk about solving those problems for those businesses, what are, can you think of one or two tips that you would give businesses that are struggling in terms of trying to solve that problem, be it staffing or be it seating or awareness, or just a general sales thing where people aren't generating the kind of sales that they did pre-pandemic? Are those problems becoming more and more difficult to solve? Are more creative solutions required, or what kind of advice would you give somebody struggling with that?
My advice would be keep shifting with the times. I watched a couple restaurants that didn't shift at all, and they lost the fight. They thought
Right.
that they could just keep doing the same old, and the same old didn't win for them. When it comes to employees, what I'm really trying to do right now with a marketing strategy is help businesses showcase how great they are to work for. Not necessarily that you have to pay them more, because eventually the CERB and stuff, and I know it's not just CERB that's keeping people from working, and it's fear, it's a lot of things.
Sure.
And people can't, small businesses can't afford the big, high, huge minimum wages. Like it's just the reality of things. But if you can pay them the best that they got and give them a living, but show them that the people and the culture and the place that they're going to work for is a beautiful place. Like this is the place that you want to work for. You want to work for a good boss. I worked my last job I had. I would have stayed for years if it wasn't for the restructure. I worked for a good team. I had a good team behind me. My boss was amazing, and it all comes down to showing the culture and the place that you're working for. So right now with my marketing strategies, I'm trying to help businesses showcase that. So be it social media, be it traditional advertising. I'm a big believer in traditional advertising. Radio, TV sales are still a very good way of getting your business out there, because guess what, there's people still listening to the radio every single day, and there's still people watching the news every single day. So it's and just primetime shows, like it's still a big thing. So I if people want to save money and hoping to make money, it's not going to work. I'm here's my advertising sales pitch. I don't even sell advertising still, but I don't believe in cutting back on advertising. It doesn't work. I've watched businesses cut back on advertising and come back real quick because it wasn't working. And then I watched other businesses that advertised from the beginning of the pandemic straight to the end, didn't drop a dime without hesitation, and they're just killing it. It's just about pivoting, and the creative obviously needs to change with it too, right? You can't just have the same creative all the time. We are in different times, so
Yeah.
if it makes people feel safer that you're wearing a mask in a commercial, or you're telling people you're abiding by all the safety standards, which we hope everybody is, then you need to put that in your creative and
Mhm.
and show and be different from everybody else. Like it's okay to be different.
Do you think the labor shortage or difficulties in hiring has been a wake up call to employers about how they treat employees? I mean, the old expression that people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses. Um, and I know a couple of people that have left jobs through the pandemic because the people that they work for were just unbearable. Like they just couldn't do it anymore. They couldn't bring themselves to get up and go to work to go be treated like that anytime. So they just left the job. Like, has this been a wake up call for employers, you think, to look at how they manage their internal culture, look at how they manage employees and be sensitive to employees and their needs and balance that with the needs of the business? Has there been a shift at all from the employer standpoint?
I would hope so. Everyone puts on a good facade in general. So you really, unless you work for the place or have heard horror stories, it's really hard to see how somebody's getting treated. But I can speak from Chorus Entertainment alone. When I worked for them, they definitely adapted with the times, and they made sure they treated every employee um, with the utmost respect and provide them with all the assets to get through a pandemic. If it came down to counseling or anything like that, we had support. Um, I've heard from a couple clients too, and even in the banking industry, all their employees were treated phenomenal through everything. Right down to being able to talk to a counselor because you're getting Zoom fatigue because you're on Zoom all day. But when it comes down to local business and on a local thing, I really hope that if you were an asshole, that you're no longer one, because you need to keep those employees, right? You can't run a small business and hope that you can keep five people and
I got a friend who just had like 4 staff leave the business. And when you have people leaving several at a time, that's when, as you have to have the self-awareness as a business owner to go, maybe it's me. Why
yeah,
are all these people leaving my business despite me paying them to be here?
yeah.
Why do they keep leaving? I mean, I wonder if there's any kind of sense of reflection going on with people that are struggling, because it's not a black and white issue. The labor shortage is multifaceted, like you mentioned, everything from fear to vaccination issues to wage issues to personnel issues to childcare issues, like all of that kind of stuff. So I'm curious to see what that looks like in a couple of months as things hopefully maybe settle down a little bit and we start to get back to some normalcy. Like, will we
Yeah,
see this? Because I know we have restaurants in town here that have gone to straight pickup because they can't staff. And
yeah. Well,
so,
and there's the challenges too. Like you can be a believer of having the vax passport or not, but that's another challenge for a restaurant, right? If
Right.
if you were having a hard time finding employees in the first place, but now you need another employee that is watching that door, making sure everybody, and that person that's watching that door has it in the back of their head that, hey, maybe once or twice a day I'm going to have some unreasonable person come in and believe this passport's my fault, and then it's my fault they can't come into my restaurant.
I don't,
It's
again,
a
it goes
tough
back to,
gig.
it's like the hospital protest. I don't understand why you're yelling at the 16-year-old who's there to seat you. Like, that person made the rules. Like,
Yeah.
if you're angry at whatever it is you're angry at, don't take it out on the person standing in front of you. They had nothing to do with that. That seems like a pretty
Exactly.
simple thing. So
And then there's a lot of angry people right now, and
sure.
I hope that like you said, we can start coming out of this soon, and people can start putting their heads on properly again, and start seeing more clear. Because yeah, we've all gone through it. It's been a roller coaster ride. I've had days where I wasn't happy, and it's looking out my bedroom window, going, my bedroom window is also my office window, so.
Yeah.
And just going like, there's nothing happy. Like, I'm gonna have a drink today, and it's a Tuesday at 11, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna have a drink today.
I'm going to pretend I'm on the beach in Cuba right now
Yep.
before I get to my next client. So
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the logo on in your background there about bringing our children home. Um, the issue of missing Indigenous children that has gripped our country for the last several months. There's a bit of an awakening, it seems to be happening with a big chunk of our country, and guys like me included, that had no idea the extent that was going on, or what had happened, and what the history was there. We're starting to learn about our history. And I'm wondering what that experience was like for you and your family when word started to filter that we were finding these mass graves and these mass burial sites. What was that experience like on your end?
Heart wrenching. The very first find. I was flabbergasted. Not that it not that it happened, because we've a lot of people know this has been happening. I can still see things kind of coming up from Facebook that was posted 5-6 years ago, when the Truth and Reconciliation was first put out in the Harper days and stuff like that. So it's not new news, but the fact that we're actually looking into it now, and then seeing a number placed beside how many kids, and then seeing pictures, and seeing video of these schools and these kids that just look miserable, and you just know what they were going through. It's absolutely heart-wrenching. My 11-year-old daughter is much like me. She's very empathetic, and she sees this stuff too. And it's not funny, but I said, how do you, when she heard about the first announcement, it's like, how do you feel about this? And she goes, I'm not surprised. I'm like,
Really?
yeah.
Really?
Let's go. What do you mean you're not surprised? She's like, well, people have been learning about this knew about this for years. It's becoming popular now.
Well, and your family has had, you've had members of your family survive the uh, the school system, and you know what do they deal with on a daily basis? What does that look like for them when they see finally this awakening is happening, and we're getting a full picture of what this might have looked like as a country? I mean, it seemed like it was brought up back in with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but now it's, for whatever reason, it's now gotten more attention, and we're now realizing the extent of the damage that was done. Where do they sort of view this whole scenario from, and what do they talk about?
So my mother-in-law, her mom was part of this system. Her mother-in-law's not with us, or her mother's not with us anymore. But she didn't know she was native till she was 16. So it's kind of just like, yeah, we're talking about it now, but we're gonna see it disappear again. It's hard to talk about every single day, and the media doesn't talk about it every single day, and it seems to be almost just a headline. When we get a new number, we talk about it, and it's kind of sad because we just know it's going to get forgotten about again. Like
I think that's the
it
most
feels
shocking
like
thing.
it.
Like, that's the
Yeah,
most shocking thing to me, though, is that we've now put a number beside this, and we're well over 5,500 kids, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but
And
when did the media stop talking about it, right? We stopped talking about it when it got to like 1,500 kids. And now do I feel it needs to be on the news every single day? No, but I feel that the media should be covering it to show the history behind it and how we're going to make things better. And it's not just, we can't make things better with what happened in the past. It happened. It sucks. Canada has this dark mark on it now. Everyone thought it was this big, beautiful country, and it is. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a beautiful country. And we have a lot of liberations here and a lot of freedom. But there is still a lot of indigenous communities that are dealing with systematical issues that could have been taken care of years ago, that aren't being taken care of. And my biggest fear is that with all these numbers coming out, is the government going to fix these issues? Are we as people going to realize that, this happened, and be empathetic to it, and realize that, when you see an indigenous community that is sitting there and you just call them a bunch of drunks and alcoholics because they're dealing with systematical issues that have gone through their great grandparents, their parents, and them. They're dealing with a lot of issues. Instead of giving them the resources to help fix them out, we're just going to throw money at the situation. We're just give them a settlement fee, which seems to happen a lot. Like there's a lot of indigenous communities that get settlement money, which I don't believe is fixing the problem. You're just here's some money and shut up,
but
right?
but Phil, you bring up a really good point there, because I know even in our region, there's been payouts where family members got, anywhere from 30 to $50,000 of a cash check written, which obviously is not anything to sneeze at. But you bring up a good point, that saying if you took those payments and partnered them with resources to help heal some of the past traumas there, would that not be a much better use of resource rather than just writing checks?
100%. And even with the no clean drinking water, why is that a thing? I don't get it. Like to be,
Well,
it makes me laugh in frustration because I just don't understand why there's still communities without clean drinking water in Canada. If COVID has taught us anything, our government has resources to make sure that our people of Canada don't have to suffer. Could you imagine what our country would have been like if they shut it down and didn't give us any money? It, you know,
right.
Now they could have, and they can. And I still feel, hey, if we're in debt, just go in a little bit more, just a little bit more debt, and go fix those clean drinking water, and let's start fixing the problems.
Like, this is a solvable problem.
Yeah,
That's the part I think that people struggle with, when, especially in the drinking water case. That's a solvable problem. That's not a case where you've got to heal generations of trauma. That means we just have to put some resources to make sure that there's water systems in place in these communities, the same as there are in communities across the country. That's a fixable problem, maybe a good place to start. Let me ask you a bigger philosophical question. What does truth and reconciliation mean to you?
well, I think the big part of it is coming out now, and I think a lot of people that didn't believe it happened are believing it happened. That's the truth. The reconciliation is it's more in depth. It's that whole there's a big legal government document too on it. It's just like, let's reconcile the problems that we still have, just like we just spoke of. There's so many things that can be fixed in these indigenous communities that aren't being fixed. I worked in group care when I was doing my business. I worked in a child and youth program, and I did it for 8 years. And a lot of the kids that came in there were indigenous. And they're right. There's a huge population of indigenous kids that are still being taken away from their parents and being put into group care. Are they better off in group care? I don't know. They didn't come from perfect homes, but they were coming from homes that, again, were growing up in these systematical cycles. There were cycles of alcohol and drugs and living without the means of life, where these kids were considered being better off in a group care setting, where they're being fed and not being abused, or not necessarily abused, but being cared for,
Right.
the way children should be cared for. As much as group care isn't 100% what kids should be cared for, I don't feel anybody should be living in a house staffed with strangers like myself, who work
Right.
shift work, and then you're gone. Like, that's not normal or anything, but they were growing up with the means to keep them healthy, and we need to fix those problems. And it's how to do it. I don't know. I still sit every time I see an issue come up on the news or pop up on my Facebook. I stop and I think, how can I help? What can I do? Like, if it's a sharing some credible information on Facebook, then I'll do it. If it's as simple as that, does it make me feel better? Not necessarily, because I feel that I can be helping in a bigger picture, and I'm just not sure how to do it yet.
Uh, that simple act of sharing something truthful, I think, leads towards a bigger picture issue, which is education. And I'm a firm believer that everything starts with education, in whatever form that is for people. And I think, you and I are having a chat about this now, and the conversations that were being had a couple of months ago, and keeping that discussion present, I think is a form of education and a form of getting people to better understand what the indigenous community experiences and what that looks like moving forward, and making sure that things are better moving forward. I think that education may be a cornerstone of a place to start anyway. And thank you for your honesty on this, because not everybody wants to talk about it. It's a difficult subject, and I know you've had a personal connection with it over the years, and I really appreciate your honesty on this, because it's a perspective that I don't have and that other people don't have.
And that's why I keep it up. And honestly, that's why I keep it up on my background as my Zoom call. I don't plan on taking it anywhere, because it does spark a conversation almost every. I'm on Zoom calls every day, and it sparks up a conversation about it every single day, and it's keeping. For me, it's keeping it alive. It's not. I'm not forgetting about it. I don't want to forget about it. I don't want the media to forget about it. I don't want my neighbor to forget about it. I don't want my daughter and son to forget about it. I want them to know that there is a history here in Canada that wasn't so pretty. I want them to know that there is still an ongoing issue with not everybody's got it made in the shade. Like, I'm a very privileged guy. I have a beautiful family. I get to spoil my kids. I get to bring them up in the life that I feel they deserve. And I still remind my kids on a daily basis, not everybody gets this. This isn't everybody's life. There is kids out there that could use one of your 3 toys that you have there. You got 3 toys, you could go give one of those toys to somebody. See me out there watering the grass, I feel bad watering the grass, because there's legitimate communities that can't even drink water, and I'm out there spraying my grass for an hour to make sure that it's green. It's a privileged life that a lot of us live in, and it's a shame that we can't fix it for everybody, but hopefully, our governments will come together to help it, because it needs to be on the forefront, and I don't think it is anymore. I think it's a headline, and until another big number pops up, I don't think it's going to hit the headlines again. So the more we can talk about it, the better.
And I think by you having these kind of honest conversations, obviously keeps it to the forefront in the circle of people that you influence. I want to end on a lighter note. I want to know, you're a husband and a father. I want to know, what would your wife say is your best trait as a husband?
As a husband?
And there's a follow-up question coming too. What would she say is your best trait as a husband?
I'm a provider, 100%. I'll do anything I have to do to make sure that my wife and kids, as a family man, is provided for. When I first lost my job at Chorus 3 weeks ago, it's 24 hours of fears and tears, wondering what's next, right? And I told her, well, I'm going full time, Phill. Like, it's just full time me. And she goes, well, can we do it? And I was like, well, I can do it. And I said, worst comes to worst, I got this person, this person, this person, and this person I can go work for. I was offered numerous jobs when I left. I said,
Yep.
she goes, but you don't want to do those. And I was like, no, I don't. But if I have to, I will. Like, I'll go work at a factory if I have to. And I'm also hilarious. So that's...
That's a skill set in itself.
Yeah, so if my wife is mad at me, I can still make her laugh at the end of it in some form or another. So that.
Okay, so let me ask you the flip side. What would she say would be your worst trait as a husband?
Worst trait. Oh, I'm a mess. I'm an unorganized mess.
just a hot ball of chaos coming at people.
Just a hot ball of yeah. It's just like if I didn't have this background on me, you'd see my desk, and it's just,
if you steal that tagline, a hot ball of chaos, and put it under PJ the marketing guy, you can have that for free, by the way.
All right, thanks.
And what's your favorite part about being a dad?
Oh, it's all great. It's all great. So with my little boy, I get to play with toys. Like the other morning, we wake up, I go down and I have my coffee before he goes to school, and he comes up with his Marvel toys and he goes, "Daddy, will you play some toys with me before I gotta go to school and you gotta go to work?"
Yes, I will.
Yeah. I'm
gonna play with them when you go to school.
Yeah, he puts superheroes in my hand. And then my daughter, the best part about her is that she is very much like me, and she's my stepdaughter. So I've been in her life since she was 2, but everything that I do, she wants to do. So photography, I gave her a camera, and helping non-for-profits. So now she uses this camera. This was a couple years back, but I did the promotion for her, and we did 12 photo shoots with people's pets. And then I put everything into a calendar with her photos, and then she sold the calendar and gave the money to the Humane Society.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so she wants to do all this not-for-profit type stuff that I do. She wants to participate in almost everything that I do when it comes to the community, and it's that's great. But she's also 11 teen, and she's going into her teen years, which has been it's been a little bit of a struggle, just a little bit, just because I had 4 sisters, so I kind of know what it's like. But
she's got thoughts and feelings coming at you.
She's got her thoughts and feelings coming out, and opinions, and good for her. She last year in school, she's sitting in her class, and a police officer comes in, and it was like his first day on the job or something. Like he was a very new cop, and she raises her hand and she goes, "What do you think about the Black Lives Matters movement, and what are you guys going to do to make it better?"
From a 10-year-old.
Yeah, and teacher texts my wife and tells her, she's like, "You won't believe what your daughter just did."
Dude, please tell me you have that cop's answer on tape somewhere. Can you imagine? Listen, before I let you go, this is directed at folks that may be your clientele, small business folks that are looking for some marketing support, some advice, some guidance. What's the best way to get in touch with you? And if people want to take advantage of your services and experience and expertise, what's the best way to get in touch with you? Because I just messaged you in Facebook, so I took the easy route.
Yeah, I'm very approachable. So Facebook or Instagram works for me at PJ the Marketing Guy. Until my proper email gets created, and it's almost ready to be created, my email is phillthesocialmediaguy@gmail.com, or you can call me at 289-251-PHIL. That's 289-251-PHIL 7445.
I love it. Thank you for doing this, my friend. I hope things continue to go your way, because you've always been a guy that moves forward, and thank you for sharing your community heart. Thank you for sharing your family heart with everybody, and telling us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and why you do it. I hope people found this really interesting, and I'm wishing you success, my friend. Congratulations on surviving the pandemic so far and helping others do the same.
Thanks, Joel. I really appreciate it.